back to that first split, and so you're saying the Oriental Orthodox got it wrong on Jesus having two natures.
Yes.
Is that correct?
After the union. It's very important because
Okay.
they will say
After the union.
yes, there were two, but after there was one. Now I'm not a specialist in
Sure.
this.
But hasn't there been some work done to try and reconcile
Yes.
the Oriental Orthodox
Yes.
and kind of bring them together, and even to the idea that this could have been a language barrier that they're experiencing?
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion in modern academics that's pretty roundly rejected among the saints of the church. Like
Okay.
the contemporary Orthodox saints, like St. Paisius of the Holy Mount and others, who are not academic theologians, but they're experiential theologians.
Sure.
They have, God works just like in the Acts of the Apostles through them with miracles and gifts of God and clairvoyance and all these things you see in the lives of the contemporary Orthodox saints. Now, these are our authorities. They always have been. Academic theology is not an authority in the Orthodox Church. No matter how many academic theologians, and I'm an academic theologian. I got my PhD, right?
Sure.
So I'm not dismissing their role. It's important. I think it's essential to teach the faith. But the experience of God is what gives you somebody an authority to speak on these matters. And so that's roundly rejected, the idea that it was a misunderstanding of language. Maybe it also was that, but it can't only be that.
Okay. So how do you guys view the Oriental Orthodox folks versus how do you view the Catholic? Who's closer to from your paradigm to?
That's interesting, the whole closeness thing. There is, in terms of like what we believe, there is a closeness and a farness, right? Okay. Absolutely. So I would say in the East, for a variety of reasons, one could say if you put it all down on the table, yeah, there's more in common with the Oriental or non-Chalcedonian Orthodox, or there's a lot of terminology today that is loaded. So I don't want to use the terms are important what we use, but in any case, there's more in common in many ways, but there's still a chasm. Okay. There's still a chasm, and I would just point to two things, and this will get us off topic, but just two things that people will consider. In Coptic Orthodoxy, which is it's the center of the Oriental non-Chalcedonian churches, is really the Copts. The Copts are the theologians. Pope Shenouda, who was the leader of the Copts, COPTS, by the way, not cops in terms of policemen. They were led by Pope Shenouda. And so it's very interesting. He says that they cannot embrace the Orthodox doctrine, the patristic doctrine of theosis, which I think is extremely important to understand, because it's at the heart of all theology in the Orthodox Church is pastoral. It has to do with our salvation. It never is an autonomous discussion about God. Mm-hmm. Everything the fathers did was protecting and safeguarding salvation, and so
in a personal sense or in a ecclesial sense?
Both. Okay. Yeah, they're inseparable.
So it's like if you get one thing wrong, you're at risk of losing your salvation. Am I tracking correctly?
It impacts what you experience, your experience of Christ, right? So if I consider, let's take an extreme example, so people see it very clearly. In the ancient church, there was the Gnostics, right? Mm-hmm. The Gnostics considered, there were many different kinds of Gnostics, but they considered some considered it perfectly acceptable ethically to fornicate, because they considered the body as meaningless.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Well, obviously that theology, that idea about man and his nature is a terrible obstruction to their salvation, because they're engaging on the basis of that belief in things that are totally going to keep them far from God. Okay. All right, so theology does matter. It's an expression and a confirmation. It's an expression of our experience of God, and then we say, well, this is what I believe about God because of my experience, right? It's all from our personal experience. And then it also, if it's wrong, it also keeps us from a true experience of God. Okay. So there's different intensities of this, right? There's very gross things like that, but then there's very more refined things. But all of it really reflects our experience. Like the fact that there were people who said, "Well, Christ is like God, but he's not God by in essence," right? Mm-hmm. That's actually a reflection of their experience of Christ. Mm-hmm. They were speaking from a particular view. Where did they get that view? Mm-hmm. Their experience of Christ. So it's ultimately inseparable.
Okay. That's fair.
I don't know. That's a little off the tangent, but you were asking about.
Yeah, I'm more so interested on a very, very, very meta level. If someone believes the wrong things, are they then not saved and going to hell?
Well,
and I'm not talking about Jesus, divinity, Trinity,
Right.
Right, the big ones, the plain things, which the main things are the plain things, and the plain things are the main things. Again, I hold to more of a C.S. Lewis mere Christianity view of things, right? But what I'm saying is, if we're talking about what I would call a secondary, non-essential view, if someone gets one of those wrong, am I hearing from your paradigm that, hey, their salvation might be at stake?
So salvation, let's unpack some words, because I think that's going to be liberating for us. Salvation is health. It's literally, the word means in many languages, it means a restoration to health. Okay. And we have in the church, we understand it as a hospital for the soul. Okay. And we are restored to health, which means image and likeness, like we said earlier. When we become holy, it's also connected to wholeness, right? Holiness. It's restoration, it's redemption, it's regeneration. These are all terms that we can use to apply to understand our salvation. Where does that happen? Does it happen in my personal life? It's connected to an historical person and event, right? So it's the scandal of the incarnation that many people cannot accept easily. Like, God became man, not just generally, in a particular time and space, in Bethlehem. And then that reality, then he himself established and said, basically, I breathe on you, I give you this. To what? To do what? To forgive sins. It's unheard of, let alone, no man can forgive sins, the Pharisees said, right? So then he passes that on, and he says, you'll do greater things than me, because, of course, he will be working amongst them. And after Pentecost. So that reality of Christ, we meet in a particular time and space throughout church history. And that's how God ordained it. It's not something that we made up. That's revealed. So in history coming down to us, there's a particular time and space where we're going to, and a revelation that's been safeguarded, where we're going to meet it, and we're going to meet the person of Christ, nothing less. And there's no preferences or favorites in God, right? It says in the Acts of the Apostles, it says, God is not a respecter of persons in the King James Version. What does that mean? He doesn't play favorites. So whatever they experienced in the time of the apostles, before Pentecost and immediately after Pentecost, we can experience today. And if we can't, then God is not true, right? He's given favorites to people in the first century, and we're lost. No, it's the same. But how? Where's the identity? Where's the true Christ? Where's the pristine Christ, which has not been distorted? That's the question. And we have to find him and unite ourselves to him. So salvation is found in that place and time, which is the church. And the church has a particular identity, and it has a life. It's not different today than it was in the 4th century.